If you're a therapist that loves to travel internationally, but thinks that your chosen career doesn't fit into a digital nomad lifestyle, whether it be licensing laws, seeing patients in the US or abroad, internet anxieties, well, I'm here to debunk some myths about living abroad as an American therapist. Hi, I'm Dr. Annie, and I'm a licensed clinical psychologist and a traveling therapist. Over the past year, I have lived in a couple of different countries and also have successfully run my private practice while abroad. I'm passionate about helping other therapists learn how to make this type of lifestyle work for them as well. So if that's you, hit like and subscribe and follow along as I teach you all the things that I've learned along the way, as well as share some of my personal experiences in this type of lifestyle. The first myth is that you cannot see US patients while you as the therapist is living abroad. I would say this is generally false. You would need to double check with your licensing board in the specific state that you're licensed in. But in general, what matters the most is that the clients you are seeing are in the state that you're licensed in, but it doesn't matter kind of where you are. One note about this is that your liability insurance is probably a factor that plays into this. When I was going through this lifestyle or like making these changes, I called my licensing board and they said that as long as I'm following the laws of my state, it doesn't matter where I am. So I could be anywhere in the world providing psychological services, but as long as I am following kind of the laws of my license in whatever state I'm in. And so those are the two things that you would want to check: your state licensing board and your liability insurance. But for example, me as a licensed psychologist, like the state of Virginia, Washington, DC, I can be out of the state and still be able to see the patients as long as the patients are in the state that they're in. So overall, yes, you likely can live abroad. You just have to make sure your patients are in the right states. But to double check your licensing board, your liability insurance, and then any other, if you have like some kind of reciprocity license like PsyPact. The second myth is one that is similar to that, which is that you'll be able to take on patients or clients in whatever country that you move to, so that you can also see patients where you're physically located. And I would say this is generally false, or I guess half false, because you could see patients in those other countries, but if the other countries have licensing laws around the practice of therapy, then you would have to get a license through them or follow their licensing laws. Like for example, in Europe, they have a European Union licensing board, and I'm pretty sure that if you file if you send in an application for licensing, then you will be able to see patients in one of those countries, but you would have to apply. It's not like your license in the United States just kind of allows you to work and see patients wherever you are. The one caveat to that I have heard is that depending on if the country doesn't have licensing laws around mental health, then you are more in the clear to see patients from that country. So for example, here I am in Morocco currently, and Morocco, from what I understand, doesn't have any licensing laws for psychologists. Like the mental health field is quite underdeveloped here. They do have psychologists though. Theoretically, that means that I would be able to see patients in Morocco. Me personally, I have decided to not try and market to Moroccan people who speak English that might be looking for a therapist, mainly because I think it's a little bit messy and that I already have patients and a business in the United States that is thriving for me, and so I don't necessarily need to build a business in Morocco or build a clientele in Morocco. I just decided to kind of not try and mess with that, because that can also get messy in terms of like marketing and how do you find those people. I'm sure there are ways, but I just have decided that that's not necessarily for me. But it doesn't mean that you can't. Like, I know there are a lot of therapists that move to Europe and begin to see patients in Europe. So you just have to make sure you're following the laws of whatever that country is saying that you need to do. The third myth that was something that I personally was really terrified about and wasn't sure if a digital nomad lifestyle would be suitable for having a virtual private therapy practice, which is that you won't be able to find reliable internet outside of the United States. By and large, I would say this is completely false. Obviously, there are some countries and some destinations that you will really struggle to find Wi-Fi or internet service. But overall, I would say internet in other countries is just as reliable, if not more reliable, than the internet in the United States. I think when you live in the United States, there is definitely this idea that other countries aren't as developed and won't have the same amenities as we have in the States. As someone who has lived abroad for a year, I would say that is also definitely false. Other countries have very similar, if not better, amenities. And so, like for me, I've lived in Morocco most of the time. I've also traveled to Thailand and Bali. I've worked in these three countries so far. There was this anxiety about like Morocco because it's a third world country, like will they have reliable internet? Overall, I have not had an issue at all. Obviously, some Wi-Fi providers don't have good internet, like don't have as reliable internet in certain locations. But overall, like my internet has been really great and I haven't had too many issues. Like obviously there are some times where the service isn't as good, but I would say that was the same as in the United States. Like when I was seeing patients virtually in the United States, there were a lot of internet issues too. The internet is something that makes you really scared about not being able to live abroad. It definitely shouldn't be a concern. Myth 4 is a little bit similar to 3, which is that you would have to give up on your quality of life moving to another country or traveling abroad. Now, if you're someone that has traveled a lot, this might be something that you're more aware of is a myth, but I do think that in the United States, in general, there is an elitism to the United States, thinking that other countries aren't as good as what the United States has to offer. And I feel like that is kind of a more subtle messaging, but I would say in general, there are some countries that don't have a similar quality of life in certain categories, have a way better quality of life in other categories. Just this general blanket statement that you kind of would have to give up on things if you move outside of the United States, I would say is false, and that you might even enjoy your life and have better amenities in other countries. For example, for me, I live in a small village in Morocco, and while I don't have similar amenities to the United States, things can be a little bit more challenging. I can't just go to a Target and get whatever thing that I want to get, or I can't just order whatever I want to order on Amazon. The trade-off is that I live in a country and I live in a little village that has a really great community. People here in Morocco are so warm and welcoming, and they really value relationships and family. But also, I literally live right next to the beach. Like it takes me not even 5 minutes to walk down the little hill to get to the beach. And I would never be able to live that type of lifestyle in America. Like, I personally will never probably make enough money to live beachside in America. And so I would say in general, every country has their pros and cons. Like in America, you have everything at the snap of your finger, but you really lose out on a lot of stuff. America doesn't have a really great sense of community. Like everybody is kind of isolated because everybody drives in cars and everybody just orders everything offline, and you don't really develop relationships with like people that are around you. It is false that you wouldn't struggle in America the way that you would struggle in other countries if you decide to move there. See, that isn't true. You're going to be able to have a good quality of life, if not better, honestly. So the fifth myth that I want to be debunked today is the idea that you either have to be 100% remote or 100% in person. I want to debunk this because I think a lot of people can get into like a very extreme mindset about things. Like if they want to become a digital nomad, they have to sell all of their things. They have to live just out of a suitcase and move from country to country, and that they wouldn't even have a home base anywhere. And I just don't think that's true. I actually think that type of lifestyle might be even harder as a, like trying to run your private practice as a therapist. Obviously it's doable, but I would say overall that would kind of be exhausting, even for people who aren't therapists. I would definitely say there is room to play with how this lifestyle looks for you. One thing that you could do is that you could maybe just like a couple months out of the year live in another country. Like obviously that would be more expensive because the month that you're living in another country, you would still have to be paying for an office space and your rent and everything in your home country. If you plan and you save for that, that could be one option to kind of have best of both worlds, where you get to go and enjoy another country while not having to give up your lifestyle, or like not having to give up your kind of home in the United States. If you don't want to live 100% remote or 100% in person, you would have to have some type of privileges to be able to do that. But it is something that is possible, and I wouldn't limit yourself to either one or the other. Similarly, if you're someone who's not exactly sure if you're wanting to uproot your life and go to another country, I would recommend saving up so that you can spend a month in the country that you're kind of interested in traveling to and seeing how that goes. And if you like it, if you like that type of lifestyle. The first country I decided to live in was Morocco, and that's because I had taken a vacation there and I loved it so much, and so I had a sense that I liked it, and I was like, okay, I'll just live here for a month and see how it goes. And then obviously decided to extend that and have lived here for the most part of the last year. And so similarly, like other people could try and do that as well, as they go take a month and live and work in that place and then go back to their regular life in America and decide like, okay, like is that the type of lifestyle you want to transition into? Then great, then you know you have some resolve and conviction inside of you that this big change is worth it. There are definitely options, and that is one thing I would say is explore your options. Even if you do decide to live abroad for a year, it doesn't have to be forever. You can go back to the United States and rebuild an in-person practice. Like it's not something that you have to do 100%. Okay, so that's all I have for you guys today. Thanks for joining. I do hope to be putting out some more content about this, but please leave any comments if you have any questions or you have any thoughts about what I shared today, or if you have any questions you'd like me to do future videos on. I would love to know and love to create some content specific to what some of you are all needing. Yeah, check me out on Instagram. I have a Instagram page for my private practice. You can also check out my website and stuff for that. Otherwise, yeah, I'll see you guys next time.